This is making hard candy. As you can see, it's already boiling on top of the stove. Got it on medium heat. I don't know if you can tell with the left hand knob there. It's for that burner. It's on about 6 o'clock if this were a clock face. So we started with a cup of water, added 3/4 cup of sugar, 1 1/4 cups of light corn syrup. Then I put in some yellow food coloring because this is going to be a lemon candy. Learned from past experience using yellow food coloring, a little bit goes a very long way. If you put in too much, it ends up looking orange. So I just put 1 drop in. If you're using another color, about 1 teaspoon of food coloring will do. So we bring this to a boil. It takes about 15 minutes from a cold pan to get to this point. Stir it about every 5 minutes along the way. And we're going to cover it for 3 minutes. And that's to make sure that all the granulated sugar is dissolved. After 3 minutes, we're going to take the cover off and turn our knob to about the 9 o'clock position, where it will stay for about 25 minutes. You'll need a candy thermometer in order to do this. So if you don't have one, you'll have to buy one. They're about $5. We're going to stick when we take the lid off, we're going to stick this candy thermometer in there, and we'll know it's done when it reaches 300 degrees. If you look right on the thermometer, I don't know if you can read that or not. It says hard crack at 300. That means your hard candy's done when you get to that temperature. While we're waiting for the candy to cook, I just want to show you what I did to prepare a pan to pour the hot candy in whenever it's done boiling. This I made from a sheet of aluminum foil because I didn't have the right size pan available. And all I did was take our little sifter here and fill it with powdered sugar, and then lightly tap it on the side to put just a thin even coating of powdered sugar on there, and that's going to keep the candy from sticking to the pan. If you don't want to make your own little pan out of aluminum foil like I improvised with, you can use a cookie sheet or a baking dish of some kind. Just make sure that you line it with powdered sugar so that the candy doesn't stick. Just wanted to talk a little bit about flavorings. These are sold in the same section of your grocery store in the baking aisle where you find the vanilla extract. And you will find whole bunches of different flavors. This is Goodman's. I don't particularly endorse that brand, but that's the one that I use because that's the brand that was sold at the store I was shopping at that day. But there are other brands. As you can see, we're just about getting there. Temperature's up to a little over 250. Should be about another 10 minutes or so. This will be at 300. So we're at 300 degrees. Gonna mix our teaspoon of flavoring in there. See that as soon as you do that, all the bubbling starts to go down. I'm going to let this sit on the stove for another minute just to let all the bubbles rise to the surface and pop. Okay, now that we've got the bubbles out, mostly, just going to go ahead and pour. And I hope it all fits because I guessed at the size to make this. Looks like we might just barely make it. A little bit left over. I'm just going to pour onto a paper plate. Now, some people suggest just waiting 45 minutes for this to cool. And then smashing it with a hammer. But that leaves you with candy that's going to have a lot of sharp edges and it could cut your mouth. So what I like to do is let it cool for a few minutes, and just when it starts to get tacky, it'll still be pretty hot on your hands. I just take a pair of kitchen scissors and cut it into long strips, and then cut the strips into individual pieces, and that leaves you with rounder edges, because even though you're cutting with a pair of scissors, the candy's still pretty warm and it's going to round off those sharp edges. Okay, it's been about 12 minutes and it's still pretty hot, but it's starting to get to the point where I can do something with it. How long it takes to cool is going to depend a lot on how thickly you poured it. This is maybe ½ an inch thick. You can see it's sticking to the foil where there was no powdered sugar. Basic idea is to free it from the foil so I can get it to a point where I can cut it. Which you'll find, and I messed it up by folding it over on itself. Once it begins to cool, it gets hard very quickly. You'll see by the end. By the end, it'll start breaking and cracking. That's why they call it the hard crack stage. And this is so hot right now, it's almost burning my hands. And you'll find it starts cracking like that around the edges first. Edges obviously cool faster. This is still really, really hot in the center here. Let's see, it's still gooey enough that it's sticking to the scissors in some places. Cutting these onto a paper plate covered in powdered sugar, because when they're still hot like this, they're still a little gooey and they will stick together. So I'm just coating them in sugar to prevent it from sticking. You may be tempted to wait longer to let it cool down some more so you don't burn your fingers. The longer you wait, the more chances you're going to get to the end. It'll be too hard to cut. See, this sifter is also useful getting the excess sugar off of the candy. Let's see, that's the extra that I poured on the paper plate. This is part of it too. But this has gotten, you can hear it cracking when I cut it. And then little bits and pieces start flying all over the kitchen.